Hello and welcome to the second in a series of webcasts on the topic of savings, investment and NBFI, non-bank financial intermediation. My name is Nicolette Moser and I'm a Senior Director at the International Capital Markets Association. And today I am speaking with Nadia Nikolova of Allianz Global Investors, where Nadia heads the Development Finance and Impact Credit Strategies, currently managing over $3.5 billion of commitments. Nadia joined Allianz GI 10 years ago, originally as a portfolio manager in the infrastructure debt team, and from 2016 has been focused on expanding Allianz GI's presence in sustainable investments. This includes the infrastructure debt partnership with the International Financial Corporation, part of the World Bank, Emerging Africa Infrastructure Fund investment, the introduction of Allianz Asia Private Credit Strategy, and a host of other initiatives. Most recently, under Nadia's leadership, the team launched a European-focused impact private credit fund, which achieved 560 million euros at first close in 2024. And I'm delighted to have Nadia with me today to discuss and provide more insights into impact private credit strategies and the meaningful work that it supports. My first question to you, Nadia. So impact investing is still relatively new, but fast growing. And my understanding is that this has been driven by investors looking to put people and planet at the heart of their investments, while still generating a financial return. In your experience, has investor interest been the main driver of growth in impact investing?
It's interesting. I think you need both demand and supply to meet each other as any equation. Indeed, investor demand has grown significantly in the last 7 years, whether that was in private equity or more recently into private credit with an impact lens. So if you think about the demand side of the equation, all the way from the individual level, if I think about my 20-year-old brother, he's interested and is a part of a generation that's much more sustainability focused, not only through how he dresses, what brands, where the clothes manufactured, but also as he's becoming more and more part of the savings population and driving investments population, he also thinks about how is his own wealth being managed. And it's part of a generation that can click and shift between investments with a few clicks on an app. So individual and retail investors are starting to think about how do I also do good with my money, not just generate return, and do both. Institutional investors, if you also think about my brother's pension at the end of the day, are also starting to see that dynamic as well. But of course, they're not being naive. They need a compelling return in addition to the positive impact that the investments can generate. On the supply side, 2020 marked the year of great resignation. Many people quit their jobs. People with skills and capital built businesses that were solutions driven, trying to provide solutions to environmental and society's largest challenges. As those businesses expanded, impact private equity became much more interested, and that's where we started 2020, 2022 to 24. We started seeing a significant increase in private equity impact dry powder, and of course, once you had a critical mass of PE dry powder, impact private credit became an asset class. So that was kind of the supply and demand meeting each other, the demand from the investor, retail and institutional, and the supply of investable opportunities.
So perhaps confusingly, private credit is used interchangeably with private debt, but labels aside, my understanding is that impact private credit offers investors a rich source of opportunity and diversification while doing good. So why do you think impact private credit offers such an interesting investment opportunity?
Perhaps we start with what impact investing is, whether it's debt or credit or however it's labeled. I think it's important to get our definitions right. when we talk about impacting investing, we talk about supporting business models that through their product and services provide a positive and measurable difference by making a proven need in society, by improving a proven need in society. Private credit or private debt is a providing capital essentially for this type of businesses who through their products and services are providing a solution, and allowing those businesses to grow. It's become interesting, as I mentioned, because there is a critical mass of private equity investments that have been done that require the private credit. And private credit over the last 2 years, I'd say, has been an asset class of favor, because it provides downside protection with an attractive yield pickup at the same time. And now you add the impact lens onto this as well.
And so how does sort of impact private credit operate? How does it go beyond conventional ESG investment? How is its impact measured? And what challenges does this type of investment face?
So we differentiate between ESG or sustainability investing, which tends to focus on reducing the negative footprint of business. So think about reduction in carbon footprint or waste that is generated from the BAU of the business and businesses of usual operations of the business. In contrast, impact investing is about providing capital to companies who, through their products and services, through what we call their handprint, what do they make, provide solutions to environmental and society's major challenges. If I step back, our own impact framework focuses on selecting investments that intentionally contribute to significant measurable positive impact. How do we do that? We have designed a impact scoring system that provides for consistent basis of assessing impact materiality. The scoring system has two components. One is the enterprise impact, which is really based on the impact measurements project's five dimensions of impact: the who, what, how much, contribution, and likelihood, as well as the investor contribution. So as an investor through either credit or equity, how are we contributing to that impact? The enterprise impact is the same regardless if one invests through equity or through credit. It is what it is. It is that element on the investor contribution part where different ways of accessing the capital structure differ. So how do you manage for impact? It depends on, again, how much in control of the investment are, what is your position in the capital structure. But overall, the management of it is as a creditor is about monitoring essentially and engaging at times where the impact deviates from what your baseline is, very much as we engage when we're on the credit side. And because the impact focused companies we worked with, they're all about the impact, all the products and services are about the impact. Those two, credit and impact, are very closely correlated. So if a company is not performing well on the credit side, the likelihood it's not delivering on its impact either. So the way you manage for it is basically to manage both your impact and credit in exactly the same manner, through engagement, early engagement, and using your contractual abilities to take a position when it's needed.
So when we think of impact investing, it's private credit that's more usually associated. So what does private credit bring to the party?
So if you think about a framework I just described, the enterprise impact is exactly the same. It doesn't matter if one is in the equity or in the creditor position. And what private credit in general tends to bring into the picture is that it has a lower cost of capital. So when we're looking for businesses that are solutions driven, they tend to be on the smaller scale. They're not large conglomerates. They require quite a lot of capital expenditure for growth. Usually that is funded by debt rather than equity because it's the cheaper form. At the same time, although credit can provide that growth momentum, at the same time, it's non-dilutive. So if you're there as a founder or as a private equity sponsor, you are essentially growing your company, but without diluting your own equity. What we have experienced as credit providers through our investment is that the sophistication of our own impact framework actually often is well perceived and well regarded by our private equity counterparts, because we help narrate the impact story and the theory of change of the underlying business, especially when we work in an M&A situation, when a company is being acquired and perhaps the PE sponsor we work with is not as familiar because they don't yet own the asset with the company. We're in a position where, as a sophisticated impact counterparty, we can provide some of that insight and shape it together.
And sort of generally, are you able to share with us the sort of investments which impact private credit funds would consider as investments?
In general, what we have seen is that most private credit funds would have their own definition of impact. So what some of our competitors might consider as impact might be sustainability improvers in our bucket. What we have seen is the difference usually being around where do we find the gap in additionality. So where is indeed what we're investing in really needed, and does it serve an underserved population? To give you various examples, we're seeing quite a few businesses within the circular economy space, solutions-driven businesses that allow companies to recycle more efficiently, have a larger recycling percentage out of their waste. Businesses that are providing healthcare services to really populations where that is underserved. For instance, there is a very long pipeline of wait lists. So the national healthcare service providers are not providing sufficiently good baseline for healthcare. So then we see private sector providers coming at a cost competitive levels. So this is the type of businesses you can think about: vocational education training providers in countries where we have significant unemployment, particularly in the youth segment. You can think about businesses that are essentially helping decarbonize, so softwares for buildings that are helping businesses to essentially reduce their footprint, and so on and so forth. So everything from climate through what we call planetary boundaries, everything environmental related minus climate, and then there is of course the social aspect.
Thank you. And this is really a question that sort of relates to ICMA's International Women's Network, which many of our members support and are actively engaged in. My impression is that women are well represented in sustainable finance generally. Would you agree with that statement?
If I'm to judge by their representation at conferences, and frankly, if I look at my own investment team, I would agree with you.
And do you know why? Have you got any thoughts? Is it to do with sort of personal motivation, opportunities?
I guess it's a combination of both, to be very frank. I think it's a lot of women, I assume, went into it early on, and then as careers built up, so did their profiles. In general, I would say within the impact sector, there is a good balance. There's a better gender representation.
So there were role models, I think, is what you're saying. There are role models that encourage other women to join the sector.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And finally, as we know, the US has a new president. Have you any concerns regarding the impact of the Trump administration on sustainable finance?
Hard to say what's going to happen at this point in time. I try to be a glass half full. We need to remember that impact investing is not just about climate. Even in the US, close to 37 million people live below the poverty line. And as we very well know, the current president is all about America first. So there is something that needs to be done around that, and that percentage of population that is indeed under the poverty line. Furthermore, at the moment, our product is European focused. So if the US is not pulling their own weight, perhaps the European counterparts have to do more in that respect. So maybe it's good for business.
Well, many thanks, Nadia, for sharing your thoughts with us today. And thank you for listening.
Thank you for having me.